So this is the International English Language Testing System held in Rangpur. The candidate examiner number is 25031.
Good afternoon, sir.
May I see your ID, please? Okay. Don't forget to bring your real ID in your real test. Okay?
Of course.
Right. So in the first part of the IELTS speaking test, I would like to ask you some question to know you. What's your full name?
My full name would be 𝐒𝐩𝐞𝐚𝐤𝐢𝐧𝐠.
Okay. How can I call you?
Call me 𝐒𝐲𝐞𝐚𝐤𝐢𝐧𝐠.
Right. Do you know the meaning of your name?
Yes, it means one that does good works.
Very good. Who kept your name?
It's actually both my mother and father, since they're both literally, they're both very culturally active, so they wanted to give me a special name.
Do you like your name?
Yes, I do.
Why?
I would say it gives a positive outlook of my character, so it makes me more open to people. People are more open with me when they realize the meaning of my name.
Right, yes. Is that a common name?
No, not really. In all my life, I haven't heard another person called that name.
Let's talk about weather. What's your favorite season?
It would be winter because I wouldn't pick summer because it gets hot, and in Bangladesh, I really don't want to be sweaty, and there's power outages, so summer's not really a good pick for weather. And in the winter, everyone just gets, in rainy season, everyone just gets dirty. So winter's the best pick.
Yeah, what about spring?
Well, spring would be my second choice because I don't really like the leaves then. In winter, you can get warm easily when you wear warm clothes, but in spring, it's either too hot or too cold, not in between.
So any other complication about summer that you face?
In summer, I wouldn't really call it a complication, but there's also the added risk of heat strokes in Bangladesh, especially this year. There's been a record high temperature, and it's very concerning.
Is that only in Bangladesh, do you think?
Well, not Bangladesh. It would be worldwide because of the causes of global warming. But in Bangladesh, I'd say it's more prevalent since it's near the equator.
Right, it's not an exception.
Yeah.
So what are the reasons do you think behind global warming?
Well, first of all, it would be carbon emissions by factories, power plants, and other stuff, like all the fossil fuels we're mining, all the cars, and all the industries. It's all releasing tons of greenhouse gases.
So what steps would you suggest to reduce the emission?
Well, firstly, it has to be done on a personal basis. A person themselves should be aware of what they're doing and is it directly harming the environment or not. For example, like a person could, instead of like driving their own personal car or motorbike, they could use public transport like buses, or they could walk or use a bicycle to move from place to place.
What about the factories and the mills?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated when it comes to factories because they have to keep producing to sustain the economy, right? But they could look to more sustainable fuel sources such as bioethanol, which you can produce from sugarcane, and you can farm sugarcane in our rich land of Bangladesh.
Yes, thank you. Right, and so what do you do?
I am a student studying in grade 12 at 𝐈𝐄𝐿TS International School. So it's located in...
What do you study?
I'm currently studying in A-levels. I'm finishing my A-levels this January.
What subjects do you study in A-level?
Well, specifically, they would be maths, further mathematics, physics, and chemistry.
So mostly science?
Yes, mostly science-based because I'm pursuing a future in STEM. It's always intrigued me.
Why do you want to in STEM?
Well, just by figuring out how the universe worked has always intrigued me. In STEM, I'd say specifically physics. Like, ever since I would understand the basics of sciences, I've always leaned more towards physics, learning more about Albert Einstein, Nigerians too.
Like you?
Well, most of them do, but not as much as I do, I'd say. I have a really deep intrigue towards that.
Thank you very much, and that is the end of your IELTS speaking test, part 1. Now let's move on. At part 2, I want you to describe a piece of advice that you have recently received. So here's your topic card. You have 1 minute to plan your answer. So here's a piece of paper and pen. Yes, can you step now?
A recent piece of advice I received would be from my father when he told me to always think before I act. Now, this was in the context of my university applications because I'm planning to apply abroad outside of Bangladesh towards the United States or Japan. And the reason he told me that is because not all the locations in the world are very safe. That's why he told me to consider all the possibilities before I pick a career structure. For example, in US, he told me that it's not safe for racial minorities. And in Japan, it's secluded from the rest of the world and has a lot of environmental disasters happening to it all the time. So he told me to consider each option carefully before I apply for my university. And that's what I've been doing for the past months.
Good. Do you have time?
And I'd like to say this also applies to the rest of my everyday life, because whenever I make an important decision, I always have to figure out all the steps that comes with it. And I'd have to go through each and every step mentally before I pick a side, because if I just rush in and headbutt things straight on, then it would most likely be not a good ending.
Yeah. Right, but thank you. Thank you very much for talking on the topic. May I get back to pen and paper, please? Right. Now, let's move on. And part 3, let me ask you some question about the advice that you got from your father. When did he give you this piece of advice?
A few months ago, like I said, when I was starting my application processes for universities.
What was your reaction after getting the advice?
Well, after I talked to him about it, I mostly just sat in my room and comprehended what he said for a few minutes, like really knowing what he meant.
What do you think? Why did he give you this piece of advice?
Well, obviously, since I'm his youngest son, he wants me to be safe. And therefore, he wants me to make safe career choices. And the way to do it is by picking out all the options carefully, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so do you think that people usually receive advice in your country?
Well, not in the conventional sense. No, people just usually don't offer advice. Instead, they complain when someone gets something wrong. And that's been a really negative side of our country. The people are a little bit harsh.
These would be advice. What would be the reaction of the people? Instead of complaining, if they would give advice.
Well, if they'd give advice, I'd say that people first need to be welcoming to that advice, because most of our people are very egotistical. They do not take in the advice. But if they did, a lot of people would be helped, because, for example, if the nation listened to its residents' advices more, then it would definitely make better choices, which would shape the country better. And
what is your advice uh, to the students who take classes online?
Take class online. Well, I'd like to say don't focus on the fact that it's online and more that it's a class. It's still a class regardless. You're here to learn and you're here to have fun as well. So while you learn, just don't get distracted and close the tab and open up like Facebook on your phone and whatever, and focus on the task, because ultimately that's what's going to decide your future. Your education here is at stake.
So the students don't do that.
Yeah, most of them don't do that.
So do you think that physical class is still advantageous than online classes?
Well, I would still prefer physical classes over online ones because the presence of a teacher in front of you and in front of a camera makes a massive difference. When the teacher's in front of you giving their facial expressions, their delivery, it makes the class a lot more intriguing and makes me more eager to learn when the teacher is there in front of me.
Finally, what was your last advice for your younger ones, if you can remember?
For my younger ones, I'd like to say that for my younger ones, it'd be regarding their studies, because most of my peers, I'd say to focus on their studies more, because most of my younger ones, they're teenagers, they get distracted a lot with more games and fun than actual focusing on their studies. So by doing this, they're jeopardizing their future, so they should prioritize their studies more.
Who were they?
It would be on grade 9th of our school. His name is Omar Salman. I'm very close to him.
Thank you very much, and that is the end of your speaking test.
You're welcome.
Right?